But there's some additional things that maybe we didn't pay attention to. And I submit to you today that if we are to receive from God, and let me make sure we got the right house. Let me just write. Anybody that wants to receive from God. Am I the only one that wants to receive from God? Okay, so everybody in the house. So we want God to pour out to us, right? We want some things from God. Well, let me tell you this. It's going to take some work on your part. I'm sorry, I'm the bearer of bad news. But when God does things, and he has the power to just drop it on you. He can do that. He absolutely can do that. There's been many times in my life where I didn't do anything, and he's just here. He just gave it to me. But most of the time, that's not how God operates. God, most of the time, what he will do will position you for the blessing. He'll give you opportunity for the blessing. He'll qualify you for it. He'll set it up for you. And then there's something that you got to do. There's always a something. It may be something you need to say. It may be somewhere you need to go. It may be somebody you need to connect with. It may be something you need to learn. There's always a something that you have to do to receive it. And many times, the work required on our part is to get some stuff out the way. I know we don't like that. But oftentimes we have to move things out of the way so God can work. See, we have this thing as humans, we like to help God. We'll pray with, Lord, I need this from you. And I mean, y'all, we know how to go in when we want something from God. Lord, I need you right now. And I mean, we crying and everything. We doing all. But God oftentimes is like, I'm trying to get into your situation, but you're in the way. I've been here ready to move on your behalf, but you got this going on, and I can't move right now. My hands are tied. And I know we like to say, but God is all powerful. Yes, but God is a gentleman. God has a certain way of doing things, and he will not force himself. God always waits for you to open up for him. He's always willing to come in, but he won't force himself in. He'll stand right there at the door, knocking loud sometimes. It's like, I know you hear me. But we have to do something. We have to move some things out of the way. And then when we receive the blessing, the process doesn't stop there. Because when you receive, you got to maintain it. Let me give you an example. Anybody, if you've ever received healing, physical, I'm talking about physical healing. If you've received a physical healing from God, in that moment, he healed you. Yes. But guess what? On your part, moving forward, you might need to change your diet. You might need to exercise more. You may need to do some things on your part to maintain what he did. See, many people have heard me tell my testimony that, for 33 years I had asthma and I had it bad. And I tell my testimony everywhere I go because God did it in an instant. But guess what? If I choose to smoke a whole bunch of stuff and I want to do and put things into my lungs that will contaminate, if I choose to do that, that's on me. I can't go back and say, well, God didn't heal me, because he did. But if I choose to do some things to my body, y'all hear me? See, if I choose to do some things to my body that begin to break it down, I can lose what I received. The Bible declares that faith without works is dead. That's telling you right there that some action is required on your part. See, that action, let me tell you, it's not just spiritual. There's some literal, some physical. There's some actions that you need to do. See, as Christians, we like to spiritualize everything. We'll say, well, the Lord knows. Yeah, he knows. He knows exactly what you're thinking. But the fact is, faith without works is dead. That's not the work in your mind. The belief is in your mind. The mindset, the perception, the perspective, the changing your mind to believe that God will do it, that's all in your mind. But then you got to carry out some actions that go along with what you believe in. See, if I say I believe, but my actions are the opposite, then you begin to question what I said. There is a preparation that has to happen for God to work. We said that we want to receive from God. We have to prepare ourselves. Now let's look at our text. There's this cave, right? Now, in the text, we understand the story. Lazarus has passed on, right? And there was some conversation that had occurred. For time's sake, we only read a few verses, but there was a conversation that went on before. And in that conversation, there was a suggesting of that God, let me put it my way, that God can do anything, right? And there was a suggestion that if you had been here, things would have turned out differently. Anybody ever talked to God and said, God, if you had showed up, I wouldn't be in this predicament? Or maybe that's just me. God, if you had acted sooner, I wouldn't be in this situation that I'm in. See, maybe you don't say it, but maybe you thought it before. I've been in that place. And I'm like, God, you should have acted yesterday. God, if you could have taken, I know you got the power. If you had taken care of this yesterday, I wouldn't be dealing with this right now. You could have dealt with this 10 years ago, and I wouldn't be facing what I'm facing right now. But there had been a conversation, and Mary had said to Jesus, Jesus, you should have been showed up. And let me just give it my way. What she was really saying, we know who you really are. I know these other folks, they just think you a man, but I know who you are. You knew what was going on. You knew he was sick. You knew everything that was going on. If you had showed up, we wouldn't be making funeral arrangements right now. This is what the conversation was. She said, if you had been here, he wouldn't have died. And Jesus is like, you don't get it. I am you're not understanding. I'm not just going to be there and get you ready for the resurrection. I really am the resurrection. So there's some conversation that had already transpired. So we got this cave, right? We got this cave, this area where he was buried. So we know what a cave is, this open area, stone, right? There's room for stuff to be inside. Okay? Now I'm going to take my time on this because I want you to get it. In our text, there was a dead man inside of the cave. Right? All of us, we have a cave. We have a spiritual house. We have a place where things can be placed. Right? Now I don't want to jump ahead, but I want to try to set this up. There was potential inside, right? There's some unfulfilled destiny. There's some dreams. There's some goals. There are some things. What God had wanted to be released on the inside. There's all this stuff that's on the inside. There was also the fact of this. Although there was potential inside of this cave, the hurt of the experience overshadowed what was possible. Now, Mary knew what God can do. She knew beyond a shadow of a doubt what Jesus was capable of. There was no doubt in her mind. However, in her emotion, in her hurt, her statement was not, God, we need a miracle. Her statement was, if you had been here, things would be different. See, that's a different level. Think about this. How many times have us, and I know, I'll use myself for an example. I know because of the miracles, and that's just, I shared one. There's many, I could tell you some stories of miracles God has wrought in my life. But despite all of the miracles he's done, when I get to tough situations, I still find myself worrying sometimes and trying to figure it out. I'm like, Lord, I don't know how this is going, how in the world am I going to deal with this? How do I get through this situation? But I'm serving the same God that did the miracles. The same God. He ain't changed. This is the predicament. But this is what happens in our emotional state. When we allow our emotions to supersede, to take over, we will act in our emotion instead of stepping back and saying, wait a minute, this is the same God that did it before. This is the same God that brought me through this situation and this trial and this issue and that issue. It's the same God. So I know that he has me in his best interest. So I know he's going to work it out for me. We find ourselves getting in our emotions, and this is what was happening. All of the potential that was inside of the cave couldn't be seen because the hurt of what happened was overshadowing. And the emotional experience is being represented. I'm going to represent it by the stone, right? Because the stone was covering the entrance. So you really couldn't see what was inside. You knew what was inside. You knew that Lazarus was in there because they had put it in there. Let me give you this. See, God knows what he put inside of you. But there are some times when what he placed inside of you is not visible because we got a lot of other stuff in the way, stones that cover up. So there was all these things. There's emotional response. There's emotional baggage that now we don't see the God that can do anything, but we see the God that has done stuff, and that's it. We don't see him in our right now moment. So we have this stone, and I'm halfway done. So we have this stone, right? We have these stones. The stone in the text was blocking the way to what was inside. There's no secret entrance. There wasn't no secret passageway in the back that they could crawl through. There was this one entrance. They had the stone there. Jesus instructs them, move the stone. Now, this is the same God that has all power. This is the same Jesus that's walking around. He's able, he has all this ability. Jesus could have just pointed a finger and moved the stone. He could have blew his breath. He could have called. He had options. He could have moved it easily. But he tells them to move it. I want us to pay attention to that. God can, in an instant, make us do whatever he wants us to do. Instantly. We'll be like robots. He's like, go over there. We just start walking. He could do that. He has the power to do that. But he won't. He's telling us, you got to move the stones. You got to move this. You have to move this. Because this right here is blocking. You can't even see what I see. God is saying, I have the ability to see what's inside. I can see through the rock. You can't. So I know what's inside is valuable enough. If you move it out the way, you'll be able to see it too. And so God oftentimes is trying to work in our lives, but it's meant that there's a stone blocking the way. We have stuff like our pride, our egos. Sometimes we have bitterness. We have uncontrolled anger. We have unforgiveness. Sometimes we have fear and doubt. We have all kinds of stuff, jealousy. We have all kinds of stuff that gets in the way. And God is saying to us, You've got to move that stuff out the way so I can work. Large size rock. You know, one of these things, look at this. Our ego is a trip sometimes. Sometimes we're unteachable. We think we have all the answers and we know it all. We get to that place where I got this. And I'm going to tell you, God is so awesome. God will do stuff like this. When you get in that mode where you got all the answers, God will go and like, all right. Let me know when you're done. And when you get done messing it up, and you finally cry, Lord, I'm so sorry, I done messed up. And then God's like, all right, now I can back to business. Now I can work. God he's not going to force himself. He'll let you tire yourself out. We just be swinging. You ever seen, man, I love the old cartoons. Y'all remember it was an old Bugs Bunny cartoon. They had the real big dog, and there was a little bitty dog. They used to just bark, and he's always trying to go after stuff, but he was just too little. And they would just hold him back and just put their hand on him, and he just swinging and everything. And I wish I could think of the name of that little dog. But anyway, that's kind of how we do. We just be swinging and barking and we're talking about what we going to do, and we ain't making no progress, doing nothing. You've done nothing. And God is like, when you get done. We have these things that get in the way. God will wait until he's invited. And so the stone also represents some of the other problems that we have in life, right? Sometimes it's not just our pride or jealousy. Sometimes it's hurt. Sometimes somebody did something. Somebody said something. Somebody treated us badly. Sometimes it's hurt, and we just haven't let it go. Sometimes there's this pain, and we haven't been healed of that pain, and that wound is still there. Those become stones too. Because we can't even deal with one another in the right way because of what somebody else did. Because here it is, in my hurt place, in my place of hurt, I can't even truly love you the right way because I'm thinking in my mind that you're going to betray me. You haven't done anything yet, but in my mind, because the last friend did, the last relationship or whatever, this cousin did that, so I think this cousin going to do the same thing. We have all of this stuff. And because it's unresolved, it becomes this stone, and so God can't work. Sometimes we're holding on to bad habits, addictions. Sometimes it's people. Sometimes we hold on to some people that we need to let go. And we know we need to let go. And we'll have conversation with people. I know I need to stop hanging with this person, and because they ain't no good for my life. I know I need to move on from them. And we'll say it, but we won't do it. It's amazing how many times I've sat down with people, and they're like, this person is bad for me. They're toxic. But then I talk to them in 6 months and have the same conversation. A year, same conversation. 3 years, the same conversation. They were toxic then. You didn't find out something new. And it's not like you didn't have the sign. You knew. You told me. But these are stones that get in the way. It could be simply worry. Sometimes we get overwhelmed with bills and with our children, and I should have said children 10 times. I got 4 of them. and the amazing thing, I can't forget that I had a childhood too. And my parents had to pray me through. So I can imagine, because I know what I feel and the worry. I know how I am. So I'm like, man. I used to hear parents talking about, hey, well, I got to pray and keep you on the altar. And I used to hear that stuff. But, hey, I understand. I get it. Sometimes it's worry. We can see our problems so big that we can't see that God is waiting to come into our situation. And so what happens is it causes a stench. It starts to stink. It starts to stink. Failure to move. If you don't move your stuff out the way, this little green mist is going to start to come up. And people around you going, ooh. And you say, but preacher, it won't be a literal. Yeah, you're right. But what will happen is folks won't want to be around you. People will run from you. The people that you really want to hold close, they won't want to be close. And you're like, well, why? Because your attitude stinks. Because you're so afraid that you can't trust people, and so they can't be around you. And so you're waiting. It could be in church. It could be ministry. It could be whatever you're trying to do. It won't work because you got this stench coming from you. And it all boils down to you need to move that stone out the way. Move that fear. Move that worry. Move that jealousy. Move that bitterness. Whatever it is, let it go. Move it. You have to move it. God's not going to move it for you. You've got to do it. Now, he's giving you the power to do it. That's the key. He's making you do it, but he gave you the power. He's not going to ask you to do something you don't have the power to do. He's giving you the strength to let that person go. You just don't want to do it. He's giving you the resources to move. If it's a business that you need to, you need to shift. If it's a job, you really need to be at this company, but you're trying to stay at this company because it's comfortable. Whatever it is, he's giving you what you need. But you have to make the decision to let it go, because it will cause a stench. That it's that one habit that you won't let go. That one word that you keep saying that you need to stop saying. That one person that you refuse to forgive. You're like, hey, I done forgave everybody, but that one person, that right there, I can't let that one go. Because you don't know what they did. God don't know what they did. The all-knowing God doesn't know what they did. And the same God that's saying you need to let it go. You need to forgive and let me deal